This landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Well, happy Fantopia, my friends. I'd like to thank you for listening. I'm getting more and more responses from people all over the world every day. I appreciate it. You are the reason that I am here, because I feel now more than ever it is extremely important that we begin to get good information out there. There is a huge effort underway to kind of assert this hidden agenda, this bizarre hidden agenda. We are seeing a lot of disinformation in the field, and I'm hoping that my guest tonight, well, I know he will enlighten us about some of the key players and the insidious nature of what we have going on today. Last week, I was not here, and I missed all of you in chat. Thanks for always listening. I was actually at ECETI Ranch. I was chosen to speak at a conference, and I will tell you that it was truly a pleasure. It is absolutely gorgeous up on the base of Mount Adams. Everyone that worked at ECETI Ranch was incredibly helpful and kind. I do believe that there are some things up there that are worthy of study, some anomalous light phenomena, and it is a very curious place. I have tons of photo and video, which I will be analyzing. And then we took a little day trip up to the base of Mount Adams so we could rule out any mundane explanations for some of the lights we were seeing. And I do believe that some of what was seen at the ranch, particularly when we were there, could have been car lights or hikers on a trail. But I will get back with you with more information. My guest tonight is somebody who is quite the groundbreaker, and I have been listening to his YouTube channel, and I have been following him now thanks to one of my listeners giving me the heads up on Dark Journalist. He really gets in there and digs deep and does great research to expose some of the things that are going on in the field. And as we know, the agenda with the secret space program and some of the disinfo that we are seeing is truly disturbing. And after tonight's show, I hope that this will open your eyes and you can really see what's going on. Dark Journalist is an independent investigative reporter. He's a filmmaker, and he coined the term dark journalism to introduce crucial areas of research and investigation that the mainstream media won't touch, as we know. He's appeared on Coast to Coast, Vice Motherboard. He hosts the Space Program Conference in Austin, Texas, which is super cool. I love Austin, so I might have to come down there for that. He is thoughtful. He has interviewed people like Richard Dolan, Graham Hancock, Linda Moulton Howe, Catherine Austin Fitts, and many, many more brilliant people that have a lot to say in this field. He talks about the black budget economy, deep politics, breakaway civilizations, UFOs, GMOs, and much, much more. But I really have to say I am so stoked that you are here tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Erica. It's great to be here. You probably know I'm a big fan of your show already, but now I'm going to go on the record and tell everyone.
Well, thank you. That means the world to me, because it's so refreshing to see somebody like you who really digs in there. You know, you're not just getting out there on YouTube and giving misinformation. You're doing your homework, and that's impressive.
Well, you know, it is important, I think, with the video medium, you get a lot. And so you have video and radio. And once you get into video, you have the ability to bring the guest on and you go into this other level. And I think what gets wasted a lot on YouTube is just the novelty of video. And maybe you can get something special going, and that's what we've always tried to do with Dark Journalist. And what's great is that, I think when it comes to UFOs and these kinds of mysteries, it's really fantastic if there can be a platform where there's research done and where there's good reporting behind it, like on your show and some other shows, because I think the vast majority of reporting around alternative subjects is not really up to standards, up to speed, and we really need to get it there, because when it's so kind of, it gets to be a little bit like the Wild West out there, and anyone can slip in with a story, as we've seen, and get a lot of attention for it without being vetted very well. And so it becomes very important with shows like ours, I think, to take the lead to investigate those kinds of things.
Amen. And I couldn't agree with you more. I will say that what is happening currently in ufology, especially with the MUFON Symposium coming up and their platform, I mean, this is alarming to me, because we have people out there who are speaking that haven't truly been vetted, and there seems to be a very disturbing element to all of this, which I know we're going to get into a little bit later. And this is going to be good. Oh, Lord. But I want to ask you, just for our listeners, like, how did you get involved in all of this, and what was your time frame?
Well, that is very interesting, actually, because I've always been a dark journalist in a sense, but I think, these are the types of things that I collected over time, and probably it was around maybe the late 90s or into the 2000s where I met John Mack, and he was the Harvard professor who was doing a lot of work on abductees, and there was a friend of mine who was working for him. And so I had kind of a little bit of an insight to his work. And I thought, well, this is interesting, because all of this kind of underground style alternative research that I'd been doing and, really kept as a sideline from what I did regularly, where I did a lot of freelance journalism to support doing creative things like music and things along this line. But here I was thinking, well, John Mack is going to go into this field and revolutionize the whole thing, because he's going to give it this, solid academic background to go into these subjects. This is great. And I have to say that probably somewhere around 1998, 99, I think that was a kind of a heyday, because there were a number of things coming to the fore, like the Phoenix Lights, like Linda Moulton Howe's work, John Mack. There were just so many good and solid UFO researchers out there. And there were, great studies around Area 51 had come out, all of these things. And then right around September 11th, with the attacks there, I think UFO research went into like a quick darkening period where they just kind of shut everything down. And for a long time, I think, I worked in a kind of a corporate atmosphere, working for companies like Apple and the Wall Street Journal. And I took a job as an editor of a tech magazine. And while I was there, I got a press release about this wave of sightings that happened over New York. And this was around 2011. And it was a strange prediction by a NORAD officer, ex-NORAD officer, about it. And the guy's name was Stan Fulham. And there was something about this whole sequence of events. I got in touch with Stan. He died shortly after making the prediction and it coming true. And so, long story short, basically I decided, well, there's a lot of real key information out here. This is the time to come forward and investigate it and use my journalistic skills to try to get a lot of this alternative research into some crystallized fashion out to the public. Let's see what we can do here. And I built the show up from there. And since then, we launched Dark Journalist 5 years ago. And we have incredible, thousands of subscribers and some of the best guests. And I think the quality of the show, because we do really go for facts, I think the quality of the show runs pretty high. And so I'm happy with it.
Oh, I agree. I think you do an excellent job. And it is very apparent that you've got your background is in journalism, because you really ask the right questions. I can tell that you really research what you're talking about, and we don't we don't see that a lot with other radio shows or people in the public who are speaking out about the alternative media, UFOs, what have you. And I think that's going to be key for us when we're trying to instill a passion in a younger generation and to carry on the work of my friends like Barry Greenwood and many, many more who have worked their whole lives on to spread the word, to preserve history. And that will be key. But what we've got going on now is very, it's shocking to me, and it's disturbing. And I think people need to be aware of what's going on, and they need to really start stepping back and understand that, everything you hear on YouTube or everything you hear on the internet or see on the internet, there's a lot of disinfo that you've got to work through.
Yeah, I was going to say, or on Gaia TV. That's the next. Not to name any names or anything. No, it's not just them, of course, but I certainly, there's something about this recent wave that we're in, and I think, the series that I'm doing is called New Age Deep State, and let me tell you that I've learned so much from shows like yours and from feedback from viewers and stuff, and that's really where I get a lot of my inspiration for it. But over and over again, people were coming to me with stories about different types of manipulations that happened historically and in modern times of New Age groups by what appeared to me to be either intel forces or marketing forces. And I decided, well, I'm going to do an actual study on this and see what I get, because, we do a lot of shows on the political deep state. And this is a term that was coined by Professor Peter Dale Scott from Berkeley. And the deep state is a system that runs parallel to the public system, but the public doesn't get to see how it operates. That's basically the fundamental behind the deep state. And so the idea of a New Age deep state is that in these communities, they can be manipulated by large-scale marketing forces who don't care anything about the beliefs that they have. Or, in the case of the UFO community, and I included the UFO community in this, the intelligence operators and the different three-letter agencies, it's been documented really since the 50s, the incredible suppression that happens around UFO sightings, around abductees, the kind of black op interference in the subject. So it's not a question anymore. We know that happens. So if we have on one end of the spectrum this incredible kind of black operation interference by intelligence agencies with the UFO topic and with people around the subject, and then in the New Age communities looking for higher consciousness, you have infiltration of marketing forces. And then there's a crossover between the CIA and the marketing forces, that is, they're both doing each other's job in a certain sense, manipulating the public. Then I think it gets to a critical mass. And I think the reason that we haven't really had to spotlight it, it's come up over the years, but the way that it's spotlighted in my series is because we're at such a crucial period of communication, and they are really trying to manipulate us through these stories, because through social media and through the internet, it is easier to do. And we are seeing people take advantage of these platforms. And one of the key players that came up around this was Corey Goode and his manager, Roger Ramsar, who were doing this manipulation of a topic around the UFO and New Age communities, and it's the Secret Space Program.
And yes, this is quite shocking. And of course, Corey is one of the main speakers at MUFON's conference coming up here in a week or so. And I know that after I was at UFO Congress in February, and I ran into some friends of mine that are MUFON state directors, and they were livid that MUFON, the powers that be, would actually have this as the symposium, as the focus of the symposium.
Wow.
And to me, MUFON has come out and made a lot of comments on the Secret Space Program. You can see that on their website, MUFON.com. But it's funny that MUFON has never really come out with data analysis or anything about what's going on here. And in my mind, as a researcher who understands that there is something going on around us and that is very significant and that needs serious funding and research, to see now that all of a sudden our focus is being drawn up here, is that pushing us away from what's going on here? I mean, I have to wonder, what is this about?
Absolutely. And you have incredible waves of sighting being reported all over the world. There's certainly anomalies, and what happens is this waxes and wanes. Of course, there are periods of intense activity and then periods where we don't get as much. And I think that these groups that study this, and I'm including MUFON in this, just decide to hop on to what's happening or what's going on. Now, MUFON giving someone like Good a platform for his discussion of the secret space program is really bizarre, because the secret space program, of course, is a very important subject. I hosted the conference in Austin, Texas about it, and we had Linda Moulton Howe, former HUD assistant HUD director Catherine Austin Fitts, Jim Mars, John Brandenburg. I mean, really remarkable people getting to the truth of it. And what they were really doing was figuring out, on one hand, where's all this missing money out of the federal budget going? Is there a secondary secret space program in addition to the one that NASA has? And of course, we know that NASA's budget has been slashed over and over again, and now it's down to 1965 levels. Seems a little bit bizarre. Why didn't we ramp up the space program after the early 70s? What happened there? And there's a lot of unanswered questions. So this idea of a secret space program started to come up more and more, and there were little tidbits and fascinating details that came up. Now, Gary McKinnon, who's known as the NASA hacker, was a person in the UK who basically was looking and wandered into some NASA computers looking for information about UFOs specifically. And what he found was an off-world officers list, the same way we have different types of lists for our military activities. So he did leak that, and the government did want him. They tried to extradite him over here to the U.S. from the UK, and there was a big battle about it. It even came up during a presidential press conference between Obama and James Cameron. So, he was a very high-profile figure, and this list of off-world officers suggested, not because of the names on it, but because of the implication that, these aren't astronauts. This was an actual group of space officers, and the public doesn't know anything about a space officer fleet at this point. So this is where, the genuine research around the secret space program came from. And then you had Catherine Austin Fitts doing the work around the space economy and figuring out maybe a lot of that missing money in the federal budget is going into space. So these were factors, say around 2013, 2014, that were really coming into focus. And of course, McKinnon's story goes back even further than that. But so the secret space program was very viable topic, and there were great researchers, and there are great researchers around it, like Richard Dolan, like Joseph Farrell, and Catherine Austin Fitts. Now, around mid-2015 is when this whistleblower came out publicly, and he had come out on Project Avalon's forums here and there. There was some push-pull, and this is Corey Goode, whose story was really not the elaborate, bizarre tale of him meeting with inner Earth beings in Antarctica and, being the ambassador for Blue Avians. None of that. The story was more about him being in these secret programs and it having something to do with space. And so, as the story got more elaborate, David Wilcock, who also has a tendency to kind of, let's say, stretch ideas and stretch facts. And, he has a show on Gaia. Okay, so you want to have a show that is elaborate and gets in, to a lot of speculation. That's fine. But the show called Cosmic Disclosure with Goode and Wilcock, I think, started to become kind of a vacuum cleaner for ideas out there about the secret space program, but with their unique spin, and always with now Corey becoming more and more of the messenger, and his marketing team picking that up and saying, well, he's got this advisor and he's meeting with this inner Earth person and he's inspecting ruins at Antarctica. I mean, it really got bizarre and ridiculous. Let's just be honest about it. And this is the nature of the fact. Now, the show as a show, well, that's one thing. I guess if you're doing a show, then, you're allowed to speculate over the top. When you bring that into real life, people are going to ask questions. So, when you go to Antarctica normally, you're going to need a lot of paperwork done. You're going to need permits and things like that. And so this was the first question I started to ask, which is, well, what's going on there? Well, it doesn't matter. Some secret military craft picks him up and drags him off to Antarctica. And so this is where we started to really look at the situation with Good and say, this really is starting to look like somebody is writing narratives of a number of varieties and squeezing them into this person's life, and it's being promoted on the Cosmic Disclosure Show with David Wilcock. And it started to get to a point where you would say secret space program, or they were dominating the Google results around it. And so all that good research was getting flushed in favor of this unverified story from somebody who has no paper trail, nothing. And that's the nature of the state of the research around Corey Goode. There isn't any evidence, and even he admits that.
Wow. And it's interesting to hear him talk. I was watching a YouTube interview with him, and it's almost like he doesn't know his own material.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting point. That's a very interesting point, because it's a lot of material to keep track of. And, Cliff High, who does these amazing WebBot reports, and is very popular with these, they call them Alta reports. And what he does is he gathers a set of information about what people are talking about online, and he kind of makes predictions based on it. And it's not like Nostradamus predictions, but it's more like a technical thing. So one of the things he came out and said was that, it was the strangest thing that in my reports, this odd material around Antarctica came out, which was people talking about it and discoveries and things like that. But then the secondary level came out, which was really far out stuff about Antarctica. And he started to realize that the really far out stuff was utilizing information in his reports. And then he was like, isn't that interesting? I'm getting this data back, and it's this, the stream of information is copying it. I'm going to try this out. I'm going to put a test packet of information out there with facts around Antarctica and see if this strange online group picks it up. And sure enough, he put the test packet out there, and this online group started using it and the terms, and he traced the terms back, and where do you think it landed? Corey Goode's marketing group.
Oh, well, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, so certainly they need a lot of material. It's like every time we go out, it has to be a hit, and the type of material they'll pick up on and plagiarize from different sources. It's interesting because in the last episode, we did the top 5 and acts of kind of intellectual property appropriation on behalf of Corey Goode's marketing team.
And I'm going to have to, I hate to do this right at the best part. I've got to cut you off. We're going to take a break, and we'll talk about the top 5 under marketing when we get back. I'm Erica Lukes here with Dark Journalist. This is KCOR, and this is UFO Classified. We will catch you on the other side of the break.
Stand by. This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified. UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this. Bowl for Life is a non-profit organization founded in 2013 by Chuck Gardner with one simple goal: to grow the sport of bowling worldwide. Over the years, Bowl for Life has given out thousands of dollars in scholarships to youth bowlers around the world. Our focus is to nurture integrity, honesty, professionalism, as well as respect into bowlers both young and old. You can help us by going to bowlforlife.com. Even the smallest donation goes a long way to breaking down the barriers and helping us assist people of all ages to improve their skills as well as knowledge of the game. Bowl for Life is happy to be partnered with other great organizations like the Youth Education Services Fund, as well as the United States Bowling Congress, with many spectacular integrated events planned in the near future. To learn more, go to bowlforlife.com. That's bowlforlife.com.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
I'm jumping in with my clothes on.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb, but if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Learn more at ultimatepartyfoul.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety
Here's what
Administration.
happened on the last episode of Three Guys, No Ties.
They said they look incredibly real now, and it feels like you're touching human skin. More men are buying them because they feel they can actually communicate with the dolls. Oh, my heart flutters when I come home to Saori. She never betrays me. She makes my worries welt away. This is a freaking rubber doll. Oh my God. The doll sleeps in his bed in a cluttered apartment on the outskirts of Tokyo, sandwiched between two dolls from previous dalliances and a headless rubber torso.
Well, I guess it's another fetish.
It's a crime scene from Blade Runner. Are you kidding me?
Three Guys, No Ties. Wednesday nights, 7 to 9 Pacific on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Each week, join Patrick Phillips as he takes you inside Hollywood. In-depth celebrity interviews, the very latest entertainment news, and more. Patrick Phillips hosts Pop Culture Tonight.
Join me Thursdays at 1 p.m. right here on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
If ever a breed was affectionate to a fault, it's the Golden Retriever. They're people dogs, pure and simple. And the Golden Retriever Rescue of Southern Nevada needs your help. If you would like to volunteer, foster, adopt, or donate, go to the Golden Retriever Rescue of Southern Nevada's website at grrsn.org. That's grrsn.org. Or call 598-GOLD. That's 598-GOLD.
You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back, everyone, and happy Fantopia Friday. I'm Erica Lukes. I was happy to be here and to see all of my friends in chat. Susan, Libertas, UFOs, or Northern UFOs. And then, I am seriously having a little sad spell because I'm missing Jeff. Jeff has been away, and he is my research partner and friend here in Utah, and I cannot wait to see him and sit down and have coffee and talk about some of the amazing things that are taking place here in Utah and with my research. It will be great to see you, Jeff. Anyway, I want to thank all of you for caring about this field, for caring about getting good information. This is, in my opinion, the most important thing that we can focus on, and it is incredibly important to me that all of you understand the disinformation, the misinformation that is getting out there, and you are educated enough to make intelligent choices when it comes to believing in someone's work. I have to tell you that I am a big fan of Dark Journalist because he is exceptional in his research. You can find him on darkjournalist.com. He has excellent people around him, and his topics are very deep and far-reaching. We're talking about breakaway civilizations, the secret space program, UFOs, geoengineering, and much, much more. So find him. You can watch his video interviews on YouTube. There's a great video interview with Timothy Good and then Richard Dolan as well. So check it out. But we were talking about, well, my Lord, we were talking about a lot of things. Gary McKinnon, Antarctica, Corey Good, and some of this disinfo that's going on. And when we left off, you were going to tell us some information about the top 5.
Yes, absolutely. And, you make a good point there, just talking about the subject of UFOs, by the way, and how crucial it is. And I do want to say that, we have exceptional history and exceptional tradition of great stories around the UFO topic that have been verified, where people come forward and they have real evidence. They have witnesses, they have radar spotting, they have sometimes burn marks where the crafts had landed. So there's usually a good deal of supporting data when people have extraordinary sightings. If we go all the way back to Betty and Barney Hill, this is an amazing case that took 4 years of hypnotic regression to unravel these two very kind of normal, upstanding citizens and their extraordinary encounter, which really affected them for the rest of their lives and really, I think, set the tone for the abduction syndrome in ufology, where people understood it a lot more. And there was really a breakthrough case. If we go further forward and we look at something like Travis Walton's case, this is somebody who was missing for 5 days and police reports were out. And, he had 5 witnesses in the construction crew who saw him get taken by the craft and things. So, we have these extraordinary cases in our history and they're all backed up by evidence. And so one thing I want to make clear is when we're doing the New Age Deep State, we thoroughly believe, I thoroughly believe in UFOs. And I've talked to people who've experienced pretty amazing, probably some of the top cases I've had some look at, I've had some personal interaction with. And what strikes me is there's a whole phenomena there that is ignored by the media, except as a kind of a laugh or as a sensationalist thing, and is completely covered up by the government. And you have to wonder why. Why is the cover-up so heavy duty? So when we get into areas like the secret space program, I think we might be getting at something like the actual response from our government to the fact that they realize that there are these off-world civilizations visiting here. And I think the secret space program is part of that. And so disinformation around the secret space program is largely government-driven, even though you get some marketing people cashing in on it. I think it's very important when we say, there's misinformation and disinformation around the secret space program, and there's certainly misinformation around UFOs, that those two subjects are the real information is coming through anyway. Like we're still doing the research and getting to the real facts. It's just there's this layer now on top that's getting really thick. And part of that, thick layer that we're seeing is the manipulation around the topic of the secret space program.
And so to me, I will tell you honestly, when I fully dove into this subject, I was so wet behind the ears, it was frightening. I thought all of us were in this for the right reasons because we wanted to understand what we were dealing with. And I learned some pretty hard lessons fairly quickly, which has been good for me in the long run because it's allowed me to see through some of this lower level game playing and higher level manipulation. Mm-hmm. And and I was so happy to have found you and to start messaging you and connecting with you, because as I listened to some of this stuff, especially in a talk over my trip to ECETI, I just thought, oh, wow. We have got to get this out there like you've been doing. We've got to talk about it, and we need people to understand that there is something really wrong with what's taking place. And if there wasn't a good, credible subject here, we wouldn't see this effort.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. Well, what I saw, one of the things I saw and that we really got into in New Age Deep State is this. The Full Disclosure Now movement showed up in 2016. That's run by Roger Ramsar, who became Corey Good's business partner. And that's all merged now. Full Disclosure Now, Corey Goode, and Ramsar, that's one thing. And it seemed to me that there was a consolidation that was going on. They were putting out these sites, and they were grabbing up kind of the outlets around UFOs. And I think the idea was they could use disclosure as a way to monopolize the field. And when I talked to some of the whistleblowers, they said that was in fact the plan, which was they were going to monopolize the space. Now, it's pretty easy to do that because if you have your star player is already on a show that's on a network like Gaia TV, then it's easy to get your message out there with that. And what Gaia TV, they have a lot of different types of programming, and certainly a lot of their programming is just fine. It's really just the show that I'm taking note of, which is Cosmic Disclosure with Wilcock and Good, because it gets into and vacuums up a lot of ideas that are out there and repurposes them for the show. And in specific, Corey Good's entire, approach for secret space, it seems to me, is derivative of about, 6 different major stories that are already out there. And as I went deeper into it, where he came out, and, I did a series of interviews with Bill Ryan over at Project Avalon, and Bill was there in the early days when Good was coming forward to Avalon to come out as a whistleblower about these subjects. And somebody like Bill Ryan, who was part of Project Camelot, for years has dealt with whistleblowers. And some of those whistleblowers panned out and some of them didn't. But in any case, he was, a good expert to go to for this. And a lot of the things he told me about Good, I was thinking to myself, this is fascinating. For years, this information about Good has been in the public, that the story's not substantiated, it's not vetted, there's no trail, there's no military trail. I mean, Good was in the Texas State Guard. So that's the equivalent of people who deal with FEMA and handle floods and things like that. That's not a military arm. So where's this military thing coming in? Who's saying that the military is associated with Good? And so these are just the things that they floated into the story. There's no paperwork for it. And, there's no military link. So then we say, okay, you don't have a military link. What is the background on this? And frankly, on Corey Good, there's not much background to be had. So in terms of his story, which is what we're particularly interested in, there's no paper trail. Zip. So literally, it's the equivalent of somebody walking into the Gaia TV studios and saying, I'm an ambassador for Space Alliance, and I'm part of the secret space program, and I'm here sent by blue avian aliens. Take me seriously. And Gaia TV saying, hey, great, sit next to David Wilcock and let's get a show going. I mean, there can't be any vetting, because if they had done vetting, they would have realized that there's no background to this individual and his story. So this is the nature of the problem where we're at, which is that there's no evidence for it at all. Now, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so there has got to be some money that's being pushed around then.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know that, of course, with Cosmic Disclosure, I mean, they're certainly looking to turn a profit. And certainly, I think their show has done well for them. And, this idea of just him telling his wild stories to Wilcock and them talking about different things that are going on. And it's really, my point with it is you can do anything you want with a show. But if you're going to present this guy as legitimate, then you're going to have some reason for doing that. And if you don't have any evidence for it, then why are you touting him as a time-traveling astronaut, which is what he says he is, just because he says he is? So we get into weird territory there because, in ufology, in alternative research, you do run across people with wild stories, but there's always some kind of a paper trail. There's always some kind of a witness. There's something. And with Good, we don't have any of that.
Well, and I think a lot of the cases that I've worked on are people that have come forward, the witnesses. I mean, they're not in it to make money. They're in it to simply get this off of their chest, because it has been such a profound and traumatic experience. And that's it. Just they share the information. So
well, I go back. Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is the point.
And then, they don't want to make little dolls.
Oh, yes. Well, we haven't even got into the marketing campaign yet.
We will.
Well, it's fascinating because think about I go back to John Mack's work. Okay, John Mack risked his entire reputation as a professor at Harvard to make the subject of UFO abduction a serious academic subject to be studied by psychologists and others. And he was on the cover of Time magazine, and they were like, professor, trying to portray him in this way as a kook and all this kind of stuff for years. But he stuck with it. Harvard investigated him and was like, what is he up to? And the point was that he understood there was a phenomena happening here, and that there were people from all walks of life who were experiencing extraordinary things, and you couldn't account for it with just things like sleep paralysis or somebody fantasizing or whatever. It was too deep, and there were too many of them. And so now, Dr. Mack is no longer with us, but there are people like Dr. David Jacobs, for example, we had on the show last summer, and it was an amazing show because, he's still doing that research, and his body of research is over 40 years. And, it's completely about alien abduction and alien visitation and, that very important aspect. And they've studied it academically. So from that perspective, I think we have a great body of research to approach. When someone comes forward with just telling a story, that's all right if they're coming forward telling a story. But I think, just like in any case, there's a certain point where you're going to need some type of evidence, some chain of evidence, or they're going to have to go through some kind of regression or lie detector test or something. And a lot of the cases that we've talked about, they always do. So this case with Good was extraordinary because none of that was in play. And he called things like hypnotic regression invasive. So, yeah, that said to me that he didn't want people to go in there and realize what he was really thinking, and he didn't want to take a lie detector test. Well, then you're not going to be taken seriously by the public. But because of the whole Gaia TV cosmic disclosure part, there's a skirmish there because they must think to themselves, well, this TV station's taking him seriously. I guess I should. So there is a real problem there. And Corey Goode is not the only person out there doing this, and I have to say that there is a focal point in this whole story, and it's around Corey Goode and the 3-year disclosure marketing plan run by his business partner, Roger Ramsar, because of the level of manipulation that's involved marketing-wise that we reported on in the series. And but I would say it's not exclusive to Corey Goode. We certainly do see it in other whistleblowers and stuff who come out, or whistleblowers in quotes, because if you're a whistleblower and you don't have any evidence, then you don't go to the level of somebody who's a genuine whistleblower. McKinnon, the fact that he hacked into NASA computers and came out with this information, and then the government wanted to put him in prison for 75 years, that pretty much vets somebody that, yeah, this really happened and this is what he saw.
Exactly.
But if you're showing up and you're saying, well, I just came back from the Antarctic and boy, are my boots tired, covered in ice, and if you're really in a secret space program and you're spilling your guts in some studio in Colorado somewhere, then the studio would get raided overnight and they would drag you off in handcuffs. So, there's something very unreal about all that. And it seems like, as we've reported, it seems like a lot of different writers' input into this story and marketing campaign. So therefore, we need a deeper level of investigation. Was this somebody who thought that they had some experiences, didn't have any evidence, and some other people convinced them, well, look, we can create these scenarios for you and you'll make a lot of money? That's what it comes down to as a bottom line. Is that what's taking place here? And so let's look at that and look at the evidence for that.
Right. And that's what I was going to ask you. Does he really feel that some of these events happened? And he's had persuasion. Perhaps some of the events did happen, but I think unfortunately, there's no way to vet that. We can't, substantiate his claims. We can't, there are a lot of questions surrounding that. And when we're trying to get legitimate work out there to the public, it's crucial that those things happen.
Absolutely. It's extraordinary. And we've talked about people who really, get into these situations where they've either had an alien abduction or a large-scale sighting. Betty Andreasson is a phenomenal case.
Right.
And it's intergenerational. And, there's so much regression and so much work around her story. And the story is so rich with detail and integrates so closely with her life that you can see the trail of reality in it. I think, when we get people who just pop up on the radar saying things, I was a super soldier in X, alliance that you don't know anything about. I'm coming out and I'm spilling all my secrets, and that becomes their thing. Well, it gets tricky because you don't, you have to have some level for vetting these people, or just anybody will walk up to you and start telling you a story because it's beneficial, and they'll get on a conference and they'll get on a TV show. So that's just at the most basic level. When I worked, for example, in corporate America, if somebody gave you an application, you'd call their references. That's the way that you were able to figure out if they actually were at the jobs that they said they were at. Right. In this case, there's no references to call. Who are we going to call? So it is very tricky. If someone's in a genuine black project, for example, Bob Lazar, there was a lot of controversy around Bob Lazar because, of course, he was the one who exposed Area 51. What we know for certain is that he came forward with Area 51 when nobody knew what it was. And the other thing is that different details were found by George Knapp in that case. For example, he was listed in one of the laboratories in their phone book. So Lazar had a trail that put him at the places that he said where he was and witnessed these things about off-world craft being stored by the government at Area 51. If we get into a case like Good, we are mixing up the whole New Age theme of like, I have these higher consciousness beings, blue avian aliens, they contact me. That's getting mixed up with the solid research of the secret space program and ufology, and it does not mix because somebody can have an experience in their mind psychically and connect up, with different intelligences or whatever it happens to be. That's a very personal experience, and you can't prove it, but you can talk about it. But if you're saying I'm physically going to Mars and I'm heading up a colony and I'm an ambassador for these space alliances, then you're going to have something more than your say so, or we're not going to call TV stations down to talk. We're going to call the guys with the straitjacket because at a certain point it becomes how elaborate and how ridiculous is your story going to get.
Well, clearly, pretty elaborate.
Yes. And I can tell you from working with the people around the Good camp who no longer work with Corey Good, and we're working with Full Disclosure now, that the type of pressure that they put on these people for coming forward and talking about, some of the more shady things involved in the 3-year disclosure marketing plan, and I call it a marketing cult. Those people have been subject to legal threats. They've been subject to public lies. So these people are showing incredible courage facing off against Good in the 3-year disclosure marketing plan. And I should mention here that Corey Good and his business partner, Ramsar, have threatened me legally for doing the series in the first place. And anyone who's associated with criticism, whether it was Bill Ryan or these whistleblowers and others and me, so we're all cabal agents. We're all part of Illuminati cabal coming after Corey Good. And then he does a fundraiser based on that, help me fight the cabal by hiring lawyers. To basically prosecute my former employees for coming forward. So this is the level that we're dealing with.
Okay, I just need to pick up my jaw from the floor.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I happen to care very much about this, and I do my radio show every week, and I pay for my radio show. And, I don't have a manager. Maybe I should. Maybe I should have my own bobblehead doll. I don't know. Or a secret backpack, a little backpack for everybody. To me, that is so, it's just insane. It really, really is. I mean, I think that we should have the right, because we're doing good work to make money, to be paid for our work, because we're taking time away from our jobs, our family. But I think there also has to be a level of critical thinking there. And I think we also, we need to get the public moving in a different direction. To me, to sit in one of the lectures over my visit to ECETI and to see really amazing people. I mean, there were absolutely beautiful people in the audience. They're kind of believing the narrative that was being told. That was alarming to me. And as somebody who cares so much about this field, just like you, I can't have that happen.
Yes. Well, I think what we're seeing is more and more people like you, like me. Of course, Kevin Randle, who people know from his work around UFOs, around Roswell, etc. He's been an expert in the field for over 2 decades. He came forward with a major article yesterday. And the article was all about, how far out can the stories get that we'll accept, and why is MUFON spotlighting these wild stories? In this case, Corey Goode. Jim Nichols just came out, also a UFO filmmaker, just came out with a major blog about the fantastical nature of the stories that Goode is telling with no evidence to back it up. We certainly know that Richard Dolan doesn't like and doesn't buy into these kinds of stories that don't have any evidence, and he thinks that there's some kind of game that's being played in the situation. So we have a lot of people, Linda Moulton Howe, who I've spoken with extensively. One of the reasons that the New Age deep state, I got to view the good people up close is, and some of the tactics around the marketing campaign, is when they ran a banner featuring Linda Moulton Howe's name on his book that's coming out, supposedly, called The Case for the Secret Space Program, and she informed me that she wasn't an author at all.
And I saw that on one of your YouTube videos.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that is amazing. And I'd encourage all of you to go to Dark Journalist on YouTube and watch some of his video interviews. It's incredible. We've got to head off to our big break. I'm Erica Lukes here with Dark Journalist. You can find him on darkjournalist.com. This is UFO Classified. Thanks for listening. We will be back.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
This landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazell was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the second half of UFO Classified. Happy to have all of you here, and the chat room again is on fire. We've got new faces in there. I appreciate you spending your Friday night here on KCOR in my opinion, the best and most respectable place that I could have my show. I adore Tina, and she is the best producer and station manager that I have come in contact with. I'm grateful to be here. I want to just tell everybody that I have been visiting some of the hot spots all over the world. I was at E-City Ranch. Washington State has, in this specific region, has a long-standing there's a lot of different types of phenomena that takes place in this area. It has been extensively studied. David Akers, Greg Long, they've done brilliant work with regard to this. And in September, I have the opportunity to go to Norway to visit Erling Strand and to be a part of his science camp. So I will be going to Hessdalen, Norway. This is such a huge honor and a treat for me to go over there to work with Erling and his team and to learn how true scientific research is done with regard to this. I can't wait to get back here and share this with you, because in my opinion, this is where we need to go. This is what we need to focus on. We need to focus on research, pushing the boundaries, and getting good information out there and getting the kind of nonsense that we're seeing in the field pushed out of the way or exposed so we can lend credibility to all of the work that these people have done. My guest tonight is Dark Journalist, and he has done pretty extensive work on Corey Goode and Corey's kids, different things. He has done good interviews with Richard Dolan. I encourage you to watch them. Timothy Good, that was a great interview. He has darkjournalist.com, so you can find him there. We were talking about Gaia TV, Cosmic Disclosure, much, much more on the last segment of the show, so I hope if you missed it, you can download it and find that. But honestly, this becomes more complex and more mind-boggling as we talk. And I know that we've got some questions from our viewers, and I want to ask them right before we get into Roger Ramsey and then part of the kind of the demonic, the satanic aspect of all of this, because that is very real, as you've uncovered. And it's very disturbing, and I think this has a larger role. But one of my questions from Libertas was, could we substantiate that we actually went to the moon? And I know that, it's a little off topic, but there's been debate about that. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's fascinating. There certainly is evidence of manipulation around the information of the moonshot. But there were too many people involved to say that the moon landing was a hoax. I think that the hoax aspect that comes up around the moon landing has to do with the fact that there were things that were discovered there on the moon relating to ruins, and there were certainly sightings of off-world craft. That's well documented, actually, because a lot of that came out. And as a result, I think that they had to portray the moon shot and the moon landings a little bit differently than they actually happened. And, they wanted to keep certain information behind closed doors and have it go black. Now, some of the things that came up, and they say, well, did they have Kubrick film the moon landing and so on? And certainly for some of those shots, you can see how that very well could have happened. But I think the technology involved with getting us to the moon and getting back is where the real mystery lies. And I don't think that it's a hoax in the sense that we didn't go to the moon. I just think that they covered up the things that we found there.
Okay, thank you very much. That's wonderful. And I also have from Susan, who asked this question, any thoughts about the layer of unsubstantiated claims and the attention it gets actually being a decoy to undermine the legitimacy of those experiences that can be substantiated, like a conspiracy theory, or is it just money making? I mean, what is your thought? Is this just a marketing campaign, or is there something more malevolent?
Well, yeah, that's a great question, by the way. When I first started doing Dark Journalist, I established three criteria, three patterns for dark journalism. One of the patterns was the official story. The second pattern was the counter story, which came from, it could be professors and researchers who took a look at the official story that the government was handing out and said, this doesn't make sense, and went and did their own branch of research. That's often called the conspiracy theory, by the way, as a way to make it malign it, but it certainly is where most of the good research comes from. But then the third category was the most important, and I think we're seeing this. I call it third force or junk conspiracy. And I'll give you the real easy way to look at this. In the Kennedy assassination, which, by the way, has the greatest misinformation versus public researchers history of any case that's out there, you can certainly learn a lot about any type of disinfo that the government is doing by studying the Kennedy assassination case. But what happens there is they had all this information about multiple shooters, and there was evidence trails for it. And so the official story was about to fall apart. And so wild stories had to be introduced. And you had people come out who didn't really have the background or didn't really have the evidence or the facts. And they would just say something wild. And one of the big memes that caught on was the driver did it. And there were films of the driver turning around and shooting JFK, which was absurd. Now, Kennedy was killed in an ambush. And there were several assassins involved. There were teams of assassins. And so the Oswald story, being the official story, was the part that was about to collapse. And so they introduced junk conspiracy because the second part, the counter story, where the researchers and the professors and all these people had gone into it and realized, oh, Oswald wasn't the lone assassin. And that broke the government story. They had to introduce the third force story. So this is what we get. This is the root of dark journalism. You can find it in any story. For example, in 9/11, you can find it that way also. In UFOs, certainly the official government line is there's no such thing. It's the planet Venus. The counter story is what's often called the conspiracy, that there are off-world civilizations visiting here and looking us over, and that there are abductions happening and so on. There's a trail of evidence a mile wide for that since 1947. It's just undeniable. And then the wild story is thrown in, every once in a while. And so here's one of those wild stories. Hey, I'm a captain of a secret space team. I'm here with the Space Alliance, and I'm taking trips to Mars and running a colony there. Well, that wild story seeks to discredit the secondary story, which is all this research. So people say, well, you know what? The official story at least isn't crazy and wild. I'm going back to the official story and going to sleep. And this is what we see over and over again. So that's my long-winded answer to her question.
Well, I like your long-winded answer, and that illustrates that just beautifully. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing here. As we were talking about in the first segment, we do have some credible research, some information that has been brought forth about the secret space program. And then we've got this kind of cult-like mentality that has popped up. And this to me is concerning. And I don't understand, you've talked about on your videos, and I would highly encourage people to watch your YouTube channel specifically with regard to Corey's kids or the deep state, all of the things that you're exposing. But, Roger Ramsar, when did he get involved? And give us a little bit of background.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in the New Age Deep State series, we do a whole kind of exploration of something called Corey's Kids, which is a marketing campaign about having young adults who were doing YouTube channels come out and pretend that they're experts in subjects that get covered by real experts, like the deep state, like the secret space program. And so a couple of the Corey's Kids, Jordan Sather was one of them, and Teresa Llaneros was another one. And these are young people who are just trying to, get involved with something meaningful and put some stuff out there. But they get used by the 3-year disclosure marketing campaign that is Roger Ramsar's business partner, Corey Goode. The two of them together run it. Now, the Corey's Kids marketing manipulation works like this. They come out and they do reports along things like the secret space program, and then they put up gear stores like, hey, get your secret space gear here, get your T-shirt that says we're already on Mars and stuff like that. Then Corey Goode announced that he was doing a comic book of his experiences, and he and Ramsar put together this idea of comic books, video games, and even something called Disclosure Backpack, which you're supposed to give to kids, to get them ready for disclosure. And one of the things that was announced at Contact in the Desert by Corey Goode were these therapy networks that were going to be developed for people to cope with disclosure. So you can see there's a really wide-ranging and kind of disturbing. It's a business angle on one hand, but then also you're introducing these factors like counseling, from this guy. Who needs the counseling here? Here's this guy who comes out and says, well, I have this story and I'm, a time-traveling astronaut, and I'm going to offer you counseling services and your kids disclosure backpacks. There's something very upside down in the setup. So Corey's Kids was a crucial marketing piece because they were just doing that, coming forward and saying, we're putting this out, and they were sort of grabbing these young adults to grab a younger audience. All right, fine, if a marketing campaign does that, but if it's a marketing ploy, then they're just using people and sucking them in order to kind of get the promotion going. And this is what we really have to look at here, because these are young people, and from my information, they're not getting paid at all. Wow. And so it's all volunteer work. And again, one of them who does negative videos regularly about me now, one of the things he sent me was a big diatribe about how he worked doing all of Corey Goode's websites and all of this stuff for Corey Goode for free for 2 years. And the first thing that popped in my head was, spend that time on yourself.
Right.
Get your own situation going.
Right.
If you're living in your parents' basement or something, improve your own life. Forget it, like disclosure, your own life, you're not ready for disclosure if your own life is a mess, So I felt like this is the cult mentality where they use people who don't have a lot going on in their own lives, and they exploit them for time. And so the whistleblowers who came forward, and I want to mention their names here, Derek Faust was one of them, and he gave his testimony in the 4th episode of New Age Deep State, basically saying that the character of the entire enterprise changed from when he was working with Corey and Roger in the beginning to what they eventually did with making it into a corporation and harvesting people's ideas. Annette O'Toole is another whistleblower that came forward, and she had worked with them in setting up their conference, which is now coming up in the fall. And they had basically dumped her by the wayside along the way after, according to her, they sucked up her contacts, and she didn't get any money for it. So, these are kind of disturbing allegations. And, my feeling is that there's something going on with this group, which we don't get very often even in alternative research. This is kind of bizarre. This is going into deeper and deeper levels of bizarre. And I think we're seeing the setup of a cult, and the network is being built and put in place to create a lot of cult activity, because the Blue Avians are, which Corey Goode claims he's in contact with, that's a very culty kind of a thing. And Michael Salla, who is writing a book with Corey Goode and is such a big supporter of Goode, he talks about how he has these sessions where Goode says that the ETs are going to bring their new book, a kind of like a New Age Bible, and it's going to start, a whole new way. Well, that's a religion, so,
right.
This is a research.
That reminds me, well, I can't say it. I was going to say it reminds me of a religion that's close to home.
Yes, exactly. Sounds familiar, right?
Yeah.
But that's a very good point. And I'm glad that you brought this up, because, UFOs, we're a research community around UFOs and alternative subjects, and even the New Age community. It's a research community. It's not a religion.
No.
The secret space program is not a religion. I mean, it's an idea that a lot of the missing trillions is being filtered off to create a gigantic space infrastructure. That's what it's about. And we have experts like former Assistant Housing Secretary Catherine Austin Fitts, who has handled aspects of a federal budget, watching that. And, when she was on Wall Street, for example, she managed billions of dollars. And in HUD, she managed billions of dollars for the Bush administration and the Clinton Foundation. And she comes out as a whistleblower talking about this. That's the kind of information that we need. We don't need some new religion about blue avian birds. It's ridiculous. So that's the way I look at it. We're not going anywhere with that kind of research.
No, we're not. And this is just so bizarre to me. And to watch this kind of this propaganda that is being spewed, and there was a lot of I feel kind of deliberate subliminal messaging taking place in the lecture that I saw. And when you've got Adolf Hitler up there prime and center with a quote, when you've got black slides, black and white pictures, and then you've got a colored swastika in another slide. It was so strange to me to see this, and I thought, wow, this is way beyond the alt-right. This is very disturbing, and this has no place in ufology, because you're exactly right. We're here trying to research a subject that is incredibly difficult to research, and we don't need this kind of nonsense going on that is pulling people away from really looking at this objectively.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And I think that whenever people raise, by the way, that slide that you're referring to in that lecture series is by a Corey's kid, which is why you're bringing it up. And I think it is disturbing. I mentioned something else in relation to this, which is that Good had posted some information, and the website that the information was on was a Holocaust denial website, basically pro-Nazi. And I pointed that out to them, and there was no disavowing the link or anything like that. But I did publicly make it a point to point that out to them. And, to be honest with you, it's a kind of a regular thing, and I don't know where they stand in relation to Nazism and things like that, but I think that they should come out and disavow anything like that. I do feel that over and over again, when it comes to the 3-year disclosure marketing cult, that we're looking at a situation where these people are, they're doing things that on a business level we can see, and I listed in the most recent New Age Deep State, come down to basically appropriating other ideas. And on these other levels, the marketing campaigns seem more manipulative around young adults. That's also disturbing. And that's not something I think that we see in ufology or the New Age really before. And it's something that we need to get a handle on and get a really good look at, which is what these reports are all about.
Absolutely. And I wanted to say, I've got one of my friends and colleagues who was at E-City Ranch with me over the weekend. He's on the phone. Craig Lang is here, and he wanted to ask you a question. Hey, Craig.
Hey, Erica. How are you doing?
I'm good. It was so fun to see you and to go researching and everything. That was great. So you were there.
I'm watching I was watching your face during a whole bunch of the lecture on the secret space program, and all I can do is smile when I hear you talking about that now.
Yes, you were there. Yeah, you saw me. I had to get up and leave.
Oh yeah.
Because I just couldn't.
I know. I saw you walk out, and kind of like I wanted to. I was wondering if you're going to come back in with your waders on.
No, I had to go out and call my therapist. Really, I don't know what it was just
really.
Too much. Yeah, I think.
So, have you gotten your disclosure backpack yet?
Not yet, and I probably won't. I hate to say that. But oh my Lord, this whole thing is so interesting. But most of the speakers there, I really met some wonderful people. I have to say that, and I think that the person that we're referring to, I think he's probably a good person, and like Dark Journalist is saying, is just maybe been manipulated in some sense.
Yeah,
but
you've already mentioned his name, so that's
Well, I'm trying to be coy. So,
yeah, right.
I know. I'm so good at that one. But we've got 3 minutes to break. And did you have a question for Dark Journalist?
Yeah, the question I had was, and part of it I think you pretty much answered, but the motivation here, do you think that this is, he's on his own that he's doing this? Is this just a really savvy business person? Or is this something, is there a deeper story here? Is this something that is a deliberate effort to hijack the ufology process?
I think it's definitely the latter. It's certainly an attempt to hijack the research around ufology and the secret space program and manipulate the New Age community while you're doing it. Now, I do think that these agencies that we're referring to who do this kind of work, they tend to use people like Corey Goode, and they tend to use people who are opportunistic coming into the space to discredit different types of research. I was mentioning earlier the JFK assassination, we had these people coming forward, and James Files was a person who came forward and said that he was involved in the whole thing. And so, in different aspects, and when we look at different areas, we can see how they easily push these people to the front. And very often, these three-letter agencies can spot somebody who'd make a pretty good kind of a figure for this, who's kind of unstable, don't have their facts together, don't have much of a background. So when they collapse, hopefully in the minds of the three-letter agency, the entire subject gets sucked down the vacuum too. And that when that collapses, then people get completely discouraged around the topic. I happen to think when Goode appeared in 2015 that we were getting close to answers when it came to the secret space program, and that Goode's appearance really has led to 2 years of complete obfuscation and misinformation around the topic.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. And Craig, we've got to go to break here pretty quick, but thank you so much for calling in. If you want to stick around, we can finish your thought when we get back. I am Erica Lukes here with my friend and colleague Craig Lang, who just called in. And then we're talking to Dark Journalist about some very important subject matters, disinformation in our community. This is UFO Classified. We'll take our last break, and we will be back.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
With Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Monday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, we take the KCOR Digital Radio Network off the grid and go deep inside the Paranormal Vault. Jump on the elevator and come take the ride down the rabbit hole of reality with BK Mojave and The Watcher as they unlock the vault and dust off some of their classified paranormal case files even the government doesn't know about. The Paranormal Vault, Mondays at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. This is the one show our secret government fears will speak the truth.
Bowl for Life is a non-profit organization founded in 2013 by Chuck Gardner with one simple goal: to grow the sport of bowling worldwide. Over the years, Bowl for Life has given out thousands of dollars in scholarships to youth bowlers around the world. Our focus is to nurture integrity, honesty, professionalism, as well as respect into bowlers both young and old. You can help us by going to bowlforlife.com. Even the smallest donation goes a long way to breaking down the barriers and helping us assist people of all ages to improve their skills as well as knowledge of the game. Bowl for Life is happy to be partnered with other great organizations like the Youth Education Services Fund, as well as the United States Bowling Congress, with many spectacular integrated events planned in the near future. To learn more, go to bowlforlife.com. That's bowlforlife.com.
That's good.
Turn your radio up.
I love it. All the music I want to hear. This is my station.
Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific. Jump onto the Celestial Highway and travel at the speed of light into hyperspace. Hyperspace. Hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. She navigates you through the cosmic tides of mysticism into the world of covert technology, UFOs, mystical sciences, and the world of unforeseen forces.
You get to really sort of enjoy a bizarre ride.
Listen live, Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, for Hyperspace, the one show that blows the whistle off our government black ops projects. Hyperspace, hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Want to take a ride?
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the last segment of UFO Classified. I am happy to have all of you here. It really gives me great joy to see people in chat that come every Friday. I appreciate you, and to get all of your messages and to see that all of this is growing, and this is a good thing because we need to get good research out there. I am here because I believe that it is absolutely crucial that we get work like Project Heshtal and the work of Erling Strand out there, all of the good scientific information out there to the public, because this is a very legitimate field and it is in danger of being hijacked by people who are simply reaching for ways to either dissuade us from the real truth or to make money off of the field. And that can't happen, and it's not going to happen on my watch. I definitely know Dark Journalist feels the same way. Dark Journalist is joining me, and you can find him on darkjournalist.com. Look at his great videos with regard to the secret space program and some of the current goings-ons. Craig Lang, my friend and colleague from MUFON, is on the phone. And Craig, I interrupted you. You had a finishing thought there, so go ahead and tell us what you were going to say.
Oh, was I finishing?
I think you were. Maybe not.
Do I ever finish talking? Anyway, thought I had was that this reminds me a lot of during the early to mid-'60s when the National Enquirer got going and other forms of kind of polluting there were some people that were doing some extremely good work in the ufology field in the early to mid-'60s, and they got going, and that's when the National Enquirer got going. And the idea being the same doggone thing that they're doing with Corey Goode and company now, is they're taking a little bit of truth and shoveling in a bunch of bull excrement with it. So that's my thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you're referring to some great periods there, because, we had John Keel in the late 60s and in the 70s and 80s. Frank Edwards was another one. And these were people who were getting at aspects of the UFO phenomena, which were very unusual. Everything from Men in Black to early abduction experiences. And with Keel, and specifically, around the whole UFO wave involved with the Mothman sighting and the bridge collapse and everything else in Virginia. Absolutely fascinating, deep work. But if you really go back and listen to those guys, every step of the way, they have intelligence agents all over them, feeding them the wrong information, disrupting their contacts, impersonating them, whatever it happens to be. There's no question that there's a heavy intelligence presence in the UFO field, trying to obfuscate the real cases and the real evidence. And for some reason during that period, I'm not sure if it's because, people were around and it was Watergate and they didn't quite trust what the government was telling them. The researchers understood when they were being manipulated by these intelligence agencies. Now, I think that we really get into a situation where not so much. And that's kind of unfortunate. I think that we need to be a lot more savvy. That the critical thinking can't go out the window. When someone comes forward and tells us, I'm an ambassador for some space alliance, and you have TV stations lapping it up. I mean, it's problematic. I'd say we're in a problematic stage here.
Well, and I have to just elaborate on that. I want to just interject this. It is incredibly important that we vet our sources. And I have seen, with another situation, I mean, there are people who are using pseudonyms that have kind of worked their way into the field. And if you're not willing to come forward and give your background truthfully and your name and so on and so forth, then that's a red flag. I know I've done that. I've come forward and put myself out there, and I think we should all do that. That's what a good researcher should do. And so we've got to look at things critically, and we have to ask hard questions like you are. And we also have to understand that this is incredibly complex. I never would have thought that the level of involvement from intelligence agencies was like it is, but it is. And I want to go down the rabbit hole of asking you about Roger Ramsar and the satanic connection, because in my opinion, in my research, this is becoming quite important.
Well, I think that this definitely gets back to the New Age deep state aspect, because in the New Age, we have a number of different types of religious ideas that come in. And, you have spiritual consciousness on one hand. And certainly it's interesting you mentioned the 60s there, Craig, because the 60s were a key period where a lot of these groups were bringing Eastern ideas in, like yoga and meditation and things along this line. And a lot of that got distorted because intelligence agencies looked at it as an opportunity to practice mind control. And so we had a lot of infestation of these groups and these movements because the people were so open and looking for higher consciousness, et cetera. So the deep state part around New Age, in everything, we can see these different waves that have come up, like Drunvalo and things along this line. And when we look at the development of cults, anything from certainly the Heaven's Gate cult was a tragic situation and manipulated. And then even further back, you have cults like Rajneesh, which, demanded all their followers give them their money while he was building up arms and putting his money in Swiss bank accounts and stuff. So we have to really keep an eye on the cult aspect and the development of cults within the New Age community, especially as it relates to UFO stuff, because we've seen that doesn't come together too well. In Ramsar's case, what I thought was unusual, and Ramsar again is the business partner for Corey Goode. So in his case, we pointed out a number of things in the series where the Blue Avian itself seemed to have a lot in common with Baphomet in terms of its hand gestures. And in pointing this out, there were a number of factors that people had observed around this. And it's undeniable. I mean, it's in there in the reports, and that's all over the internet anyway, even if it's not in my reporting. So we're seeing that there is this kind of connection to occult imagery, at the very least, in the Blue Avian imagery. And then we have someone like Ramsar, who for years was an artist using satanic imagery. Now, my own feeling about that is, whatever it is that he believes, certainly that's up to him. But if you're going to be doing things like producing disclosure backpacks, and if you're going to be doing things like creating an alien savior, we're going to know where you stand in relation to these things, so we can, surmise whether or not you're trying to manipulate the people involved into a cult. And their response when I put those questions out there was just denial. And, one of the comments was something like, oh, that's something I did as a lark when I was a juvenile. And then, you find this artwork and stuff through this person's early 30s. So, I have kind of a simple rule about this, which is if somebody writes songs about horses and paints horses and has tattoos of horses, then they probably like horses. And so, that's just a kind of a simple rule. And so what I wasn't getting from them was any kind of honest feedback on that. And for me, that's a red flag. I think that there's certainly questions around the occult aspects and, having to do with the imagery around the blue avians. And that's a question we need to ask and they need to answer. Because, full disclosure now, again, it's not using the word UFO, and I found that very strange. Because why isn't it full UFO disclosure now? So, there's a lot to suggest that this is Luciferian disclosure, that, Lucifer the light bringer is the disclosure aspect. Now, I don't know if that's true, but, that's the question that's out there with all of this kind of occult imagery. Is this not UFO disclosure at all? What are you talking about?
Right. And to me, I've done some research and I had Nick Redfern on my show and we specifically talked about his book, The Final Events, where he spoke about somebody that he was researching that had contacted him with regard to this elite organization, the Collins Elite. And they were people in high-ranking government, offices, military officials that were working together that had actually used some of Aleister Crowley's work to open portals. It had resulted in some deaths, but this group was pushing kind of the demonic agenda and trying to get people to arm themselves, to get people in this fear state. And I trust Nick Redfern's research. I think that this is something I've also heard from a couple other very reliable sources that this is taking place now. And so we're seeing the powers that be or this particular group maybe manipulating other groups to kind of push this agenda. And that to me is incredibly disturbing. And like we spoke about before on the other segments, there is no place for a cult or a religion to be, to come into this field, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree. And I haven't read the Collins Elite book by Nick Redfern. I hear it's fantastic, and I'm really glad that you're bringing it up because I'm going to read it, and I think everyone should, because I think this is exactly what we're talking about here in this field, which is it's particularly open to that type of manipulation. And I'm speaking here about the New Age UFO and secret space program research, because alternative research by its very nature is such an open subject and an open topic that it's open to manipulation. And, I don't think that we should see, CIA agents everywhere we turn when we look at this research, but certainly we have to be aware of their influence of intelligence groups and other groups that have an agenda around cults and certainly around marketing also, who have their agenda to make money. And when those three get moving along the same line, it's extremely dangerous because I think we're seeing some of that now. When we had the original push last year by Tom DeLonge, I did a series of interviews about that. So this is, it's not that Corey Goode is the only one pushing the kind of marketing aspect around UFO disclosure. But I think that we do have to identify it. And in DeLonge's case, of course, we found him mixed up with Podesta and Hillary Clinton's campaign and all that. It's not a very good look for ufology. And I was shocked that shows like Coast to Coast took it on its face and ran with it. And I've seen a steady degeneration, I'm sorry to say, in shows like Coast to Coast in covering these topics. Where are they on the Corey Goode matter except promoting it? And they should be out here talking to these whistleblowers the way I'm talking to these whistleblowers, raising the issues the way you're raising the issues. This should not be, is Coast to Coast a paranormal dating service now? Is that the only thing that they can do? Or is there real reporting that's going to come out of there again? If not, then that information and that role has moved to us and other independent outlets of media who aren't under the pressure of a major company like iHeartRadio and their responsibility to their stockholders to make a profit.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And I think it is, I will say that I do really respect George Knapp. And, I love his work.
Yes.
He's done some groundbreaking work, and that he might be the exception to the rule with regard to that. And I know that, a lot of people in that field, they're broadcasters. That's their job. Yes. And so you don't have, like where George Knapp is an investigative journalist, and that makes him a bit different. And I think when you have, like you're an investigative journalist, I'm a researcher. And so we have things to add that we're not necessarily concerned about how much money we're making from sponsors or yada, yada, yada. We have an interest in this, and it's a very genuine interest.
Oh, there's no question. And you're absolutely right. Knapp is one of my all-time favorites. And I think he's done extraordinary work. And, of course, as far as Coast goes, I think he has one night a week or three Sundays a month. So his influence over what they do, I understand, is minimal. But I just mean in general, the role of some of this media around the topic of UFOs and stuff, it's not doing its normal vetting job anymore. I don't know where their skills went. And so the critical thinking on the part of the audience is going out the window. And what we're seeing is a surge, a backlash against that, where people who know the topic and people who are in the field and people who've been listening to the good shows and the good researchers for years are looking at this and saying, what? You've got to be kidding me.
Absolutely. And I have to say that I just got a message from Tina. We have another caller on the phone. Mike, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you for calling in.
Yeah, great show.
Thank you.
I have a question about MUFON, kind of related to your topic, but I noticed for the first time the other day that J.Z. Knight is part of the inner circle. I'm wondering if you would venture an opinion about that.
I do think it is interesting when you look at MUFON's inner circle. The people and the inner circle, they're the people that donate the most money to MUFON. And, we know that John Venturi is one of those people. He's come under fire lately for his racist comments. And, MUFON supposedly removed him from his state director position, but he still is kind of running things because he's a donor. He's a significant person for MUFON. I think it's interesting. I think that for me, and I talk about this on every show, I think MUFON is an organization that is deeply flawed. That's unfortunate because there are many good people involved, but I think until they kind of regroup, get a new executive director, get a new focus, it is going to be run by the money. And I think the symposium that they're holding is a prime example about that. What do you think, though, Mike?
Well, I ran into ROMPA about 30 years ago, and I'm just shocked that they would even associate. I mean, an organization that is for the scientific study of the phenomena. I find it amazing.
It is amazing, and I have to say that I'm not quite sure where a lot of the science is. And I think that it's also amazing to me that they could say for the benefit of mankind, humanity, and yet they're not making it accessible for, they're not doing research. And so these are questions that we need to ask, and I really think that right now, especially with all of the Corey Goode stuff with the secret space program, we need to look closely at MUFON. We need to look closely at the Corey Good and his followers and some of the other things that are taking place, Gaia TV. This is a really pivotal time.
Well, thanks very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling in. And we're getting ready to wrap up the show, but what are your final thoughts? What can people do to empower themselves and to really get good work, to get good information out there?
Well, absolutely. That is the key question. And I want to thank you again, Erica, for having me on the show. It's an excellent show. I really appreciate it. What I would say is that, the UFO subject is so rich, so complex, and it represents the real possibility for us to upgrade our knowledge about ourselves and our role in the world and about the universe in general. We're coming into a stage where these things are, there's a whole leap in our understanding of our place in the universe. And, Richard Dolan makes the point very often about how a little over 100 years ago, it was, horse and carriage, and now we're sending people into space. It's pretty significant. So the switch there is gigantic, and we have to kind of catch up with that and sensibly get a handle on it. So the mystery of UFOs, I think, is fascinating, and we should spend our time with it. There are fantastic cases, and I wouldn't want a hoaxer or, people who are out there manipulating for money and marketing to turn off people around finding the answers to these subjects. I think in particular, the Secret Space Program represents an area that we can get real answers that have to do with the federal budget and the money that's being pilfered there. And what is it in space? Space tourism, the opportunities in space, space mining, and the different things about it. That's a whole economy growing there. So that's a very worthy subject for our attention. And I think it's an exciting field, and I really encourage people to get in there. And with a hoax or a cult, the best thing to do is smoke them out, ask the tough questions, and see what kind of answers we get, and certainly encourage real transparency when it comes to dealing with groups like this.
Absolutely, and transparency is the key. And, I think that MUFON should be transparent. I think that we have to work together, and we have to understand that there is no place in this field when you're doing good research and trying to take this subject to the next level, to get mainstream media involved in this subject, to get people that are important to research, to fund this. We can't have this kind of nonsense going on, and it really is a distraction. And I think that's I really encourage all of you out there to look at the good work that's being done by dark journalists, to ask questions. And my goodness, I want to ask, because there's another question really quick. I know we've got 4 minutes to show close, but do you, of course, but do you think, what do you think about Selected by Extraterrestrials, that book by Tompkins?
Well, I'll tell you, I can't give the most informed opinion on Tompkins. One of the things I will say is that there are aspects missing in that story, and I hope that more comes forward from him about it to fill in the blanks. That's not a go-to piece of research in my mind right now. I think that the subject is real, but I'm not so sure that we have all the answers yet from Tompkins.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. The subject is real. Please go to projectheshtalin.org to see good scientific research, and you can read Project Identification, which is another wonderful book. Look at Dr. Richard Haynes. There are good researchers out there, and when you're looking at a concerted disinformation campaign and they're pulling you in one direction, remember to look in the other direction, because oftentimes that could be where the truth is. Ask the tough questions and don't believe, pretty much most of everything that you're hearing
exactly
in this field. It's incredible. But, oh, Lord, I appreciate you being here so much. I'm a huge fan of yours. I think you're amazing. You're thoughtful. You're intelligent. You do really good research. And it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Erica, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And I tune in regularly, so it's a pleasure for me.
Oh my gosh, yes. And we're going to have to talk off the air. I know that we've got some more conversations we need to have, but I want to tell everyone, please go to darkjournalist.com, look at the great work that Dark Journalist has put forward and get information out there, share it. Make sure that if you have people that are kind of leaning towards believing this cult-like behavior, that you kind of, slap them in the face and steer them back to good, credible research, because we have the obligation. We need to mobilize a younger generation, and we cannot do it this way. We cannot do it with misinformation or disinformation. I am Erica Lukes, always happy to be here on KCOR, the best digital broadcasting network on the planet. Make sure you find me on UFOclassified.com. Find me on Facebook. Send me a message. Let me know who you would like to have on the show. This month I do have Dave Marler coming up, who is one of the world's foremost researchers and archivists. And interestingly enough, he has done an extensive research project on the Battle of LA, which is being used now by Good & Co. in some of their presentations, and I'm not quite sure if all the information is getting out there, factual information about the case. I want to thank all of you. Stick around for a great night on KCOR, and I will catch you next Friday.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network.